All right, let's jump right into one of history's weirdest puzzles. We know for a fact that ancient Koreans went through all the massive trouble of domesticating pigs. But here's the bizarre twist the archaeologists found. The evidence shows they almost never actually ate them.
Which brings us to this huge question, right? I mean, why would you raise an animal you don't plan to eat? From our modern point of view, that sounds completely bonkers, just wildly inefficient. It really challenges everything we think we know about why people started farming in the first place. So that's the mystery we're going to unravel today.
So our whole investigation starts with this major paradox that archaeologists on the Korean peninsula stumbled upon. They kept finding all this evidence that just, well, it didn't add up. It was a flat-out contradiction to all the logical assumptions about early agriculture.
Okay, so the common belief, the idea that we all pretty much have, is that you domesticate animals for a stable, reliable food source, right? It's the smart play to make sure you have protein when a hunt goes bad. But what they found on the ground was totally different. The bone evidence showed that these people were still getting the vast majority of their meat from hunting deer and wild boar. So what in the world were the pigs for?
To figure this out, archaeologists basically had to become detectives. And their investigation started with the most fundamental question you could ask. Were these bones actually from domesticated pigs, or could they just be some small wild boars? They had to be sure.
And it turns out domestication leaves some very clear physical clues. See, over generations, living a less wild, more protected life literally changes an animal's body. So compared to their wild boar ancestors, domesticated pigs got smaller, their skeletons actually got weaker, and their snouts and teeth shrank. These are the telltale signs that scientists were looking for.
But to be absolutely positive, they needed a kind of scientific fingerprint. And they found one in the third molar, the wisdom tooth way in the back. After looking at tons and tons of these, they came up with a clear standard. If a molar is longer than 38.3 millimeters, it's a wild boar. If it's smaller than 34.5 millimeters, it is, without a doubt, a domesticated pig. And just like that, they had a super precise tool to classify every single bone they dug up.
So, armed with this new tool, they went back and analyzed all the animal bones from the major settlement sites, and that's when they found the first major twist in our story. A whopping 85% of all the animal remains came from hunted game like deer and wild boar. And the domesticated pigs? Get this, they made up a tiny, tiny fraction of the total.
Just 5%. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. 5, that number is so small, it's practically a rounding error. I mean, you do not go through the immense, society-changing effort of domesticating an animal for a measly 5% of your diet. No way. The real reason had to be something else entirely.
Okay, and this is where the detective story really hits its climax. The archaeologists finally found their smoking gun, the key piece of evidence that would solve the whole riddle. And the answer wasn't in what the bones were, but in where and how they were finding them.
See, the domesticated pig bones weren't showing up where you'd expect, like in the garbage pits with all the other food scraps. Nope. Instead, they were found in these really strange, specific arrangements. We're talking about pig jaws carefully placed inside pottery jars, which were then sealed with stone lids. At other sites, they found the entire skeleton of a piglet buried inside a large jar that was placed upside down. Yeah, these were not leftovers. This was something deliberate, something careful, something deeply meaningful.
And the more of these strange burials they found, the clearer the pattern became. The way these pigs were treated after they died was completely different from any other animal. All the clues were pointing in one undeniable direction. These pigs weren't being prepared as food. They were being prepared as offerings.
And the ritual pattern gets even more specific. Think about it. If your goal is to get the most meat, you raise a pig until it's fully grown. But here, the animals being sacrificed were almost always young piglets. And on top of that, the head and skull seemed to be uniquely important. In some places, the archaeologists found no other bones at all, just the pig's head buried all by itself. This was clearly about symbolism, not about dinner.
So, if the pigs weren't for eating, then what was the point? Well, the solution to the mystery isn't about farming or biology. It's about sociology. It's about power, prestige, and how you build a society from the ground up. To get this, we need to talk about a concept called symbolic capital. Now, it sounds a little academic, I know, but the idea is actually super simple. It's any asset that isn't concrete stuff like money or land, but is just as valuable. Things like prestige, honor, and social status. The perfect modern example is a super expensive luxury car or a designer handbag. You don't buy it because it's practical. You buy it for what it says about you.
And that is exactly what the domesticated pig was for the up-and-coming leaders in ancient Korea. This rare, valuable, hard-to-raise animal wasn't dinner. It was a powerful new kind of technology, a tool used specifically to create, to show off, and to solidify social power.
We can actually break down the pig's social job into 3 key functions. First off, by sacrificing something so rare and valuable, a leader could basically broadcast their wealth and power to everyone. It was a public performance of status. Second, the ritual itself, getting everyone together for this important event, was a powerful way to unify the community under that leader. And finally, by being the one to lead the ceremony, the chief was positioning themselves as the special link to the gods or the ancestors, which gave them a ton of authority.
So, the case of the uneaten pig is solved. But this story from thousands of years ago has this really profound lesson that is incredibly relevant to us right now. This is about way more than just ancient history. Here's the big takeaway. We tend to look at the past and even the future through our modern lens of what's practical and efficient. But the story of the Korean pig shows us that when a new resource or a new technology first shows up, its most important job might have nothing to do with practicality at all. Its true value might be purely social or symbolic.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. As we stand here today with all these new technologies emerging, from AI to genetic engineering, what are the obvious uses we're assuming they're for? And just like those ancient Koreans and their pigs, could we be completely missing the real social revolution they're about to kick off? It is definitely something to think about.